Welcome to the PCN Capitol Preview. I'm Larry Casper. Today we're talking about skill games in Pennsylvania, but before we get to that, we're joined by Hallie Lauer, city government and politics reporter at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Welcome to our show, Hallie.
Thank you so much for having me.
There's a primary election for mayor of Pittsburgh coming up. What kind of voter turnout is expected?
Truthfully, we're not anticipating a very high voter turnout. You know, it's an off-year, off-cycle election. It's really hard to get people out for stuff like that. So generally, looking at it, voter turnout's likely to be low in terms of when you compare it to like a presidential election. But we are anticipating it to be a little bit higher than previous primary mayoral races, just because it's two candidates who have really big name recognition. It's very competitive, so we think that'll bring some more people out than normal.
And we want to find out more about the candidates, but first, Hallie, what are the factors that could motivate voters to go out to the polls anyway in May?
Yeah, so a huge issue in Pittsburgh right now is affordable housing. It's one of the biggest things that the candidates are talking about. It's something a lot of organizations in the city are worried about, developers are worried about. I think that's going to be the main driver. People have a lot of different opinions on what they think should be happening with affordable housing and how they think more of it should be built, if it should be built in some cases. So I think that will be the main driver. And then, behind that is public safety. That's always a big issue for people.
What kind of reputation has incumbent Mayor Ed Gainey made for himself since he took office?
Well, that depends who you ask. If you ask his supporters, he's done a lot to bring in diversity into the city, bring in like social programs, like Stop the Violence programs that are community outreach to try to prevent violence before it starts, to interact with some of those potential violent actors before they actually take that step. He's been fighting to try to get some of the nonprofits to what he says pay their fair share. If you ask some people who aren't on his side, violent crime has gone down overall, but your smaller types of crime, larceny, car theft, they're a little bit up. And so people are a bit critical about that. But yeah, so that's all I got for that one.
Well, what kind of life experience does the challenger, Corey O'Connor, bring to this race, Hallie?
Corey spent his entire professional life in politics. He started out in Congressman Mike Doyle's office, and then from there he was on Pittsburgh City Council for 10 years. And then in 2022, he was appointed to the County Controller's Office by then Governor Tom Wolf, which he then won a full term of in 2023.
You said Corey O'Connor was on City Council. Now, I understand currently he's County Controller. How much name recognition does he bring to this race? And we know that can be important.
I think there's an argument to be made that he actually brings more name recognition than the current mayor, because he has this decade from City Council, but he's also the son of the late Mayor Bob O'Connor. So you have a whole generation of Pittsburghers who know him because of Bob, and people in Pittsburgh loved him as the mayor. So Corey's bringing a lot of name recognition.
So could you help us understand what kind of a platform is he bringing out to the public? How is he trying to get through to the voters to vote for him in this primary?
Truthfully, when it comes down to policy points, both of the candidates for the Democratic primary have very similar platforms. Corey is taking his platform to be a little bit more critical of current Mayor Ed Gainey. He's been known to say that he doesn't see any vision coming off of Grant Street being where the seat of government is in Pittsburgh. And so he's being critical of there's not a lot of forward thinking, but policy to policy, they have very similar ideas when it comes to, public safety and housing.
How was voter turnout when Gainey won his primary back in 2021? How might that compare to the turnout we'll see in May?
So his primary in 2021 was one of the highest voter turnouts Pittsburgh had seen for a mayoral primary race. And that was just, could be attributed to a number of things. People were frustrated with then Mayor Bill Peduto. There was a lot of civil unrest following the murder of George Floyd. We were coming off of a very contentious 2020 presidential race. So that was very high. And I think that gives us a little bit of an insight. We're kind of in a similar situation right now, coming off a presidential election that drew a lot of people out to the polls. And just anecdotally talking to people in the city, a lot of residents seem motivated to get out and vote this year. So I think it'll be low comparatively to presidential, but higher than normal.
Hallie, is there anything different about the climate compared to 2021? As far as the primary is concerned next month, are we voting in a similar atmosphere in Pittsburgh?
I think there's the argument to be made that, yeah, we are. We're seeing a well-known challenger come up against an incumbent mayor. Some people are frustrated with that incumbent mayor. I think one of the main things that's different is we are now not in the throes of a pandemic. Pittsburgh has seen the expiration of almost $360 million it got from the federal government. And so those investments have shifted Pittsburgh a little bit in some ways. But I think what it boils down to is, people are still worried about, are their streets getting paved? Are the cops doing their jobs? Is the snow getting plowed and the garbage getting picked up? Those core city services still, the city struggles with some of them, and residents are still concerned about that.
Hallie, what has mail-in voting done for turnout in general in Pittsburgh?
For the mayoral election, I don't really think it's had much of an impact. Pittsburgh has a 3-to-1 Democratic voter registration advantage. So those people were using mail-in at a higher rate than Republicans were already when it became widespread. So I don't necessarily think that mail-in has had a huge influence. There is a large student population in Pittsburgh that might impact and give the voter turnout a little bit of a boost, but I don't think it's going to be hugely impactful.
Last question, Hallie. We've talked about incumbent Mayor Ed Gainey and Corey O'Connor as a challenger here, and you said that Corey O'Connor may even have better name recognition than Ed Gainey going into this race. Who has the edge so far at this moment in this race, and why?
I would say right now it's Corey. He has significantly out-fundraised Mayor Gainey in January and February. We haven't seen the March numbers yet, but I mean, like 20-to-1, he outraised the current mayor in January. And so that gives him the advantage to get, on TV with ads, more ads out, mailers, lawn signs. And he's also gotten some key endorsements in Pittsburgh. The Allegheny County Democratic Committee is a huge one that the mayor did not get and Corey did. So I think he's got a little bit of an edge, but it's going to be close. All
right. Thank you very much, Hallie Lauer, a city government and politics reporter at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. More of the PCN Capitol Preview after a short break.
Want to know what's new on your favorite PCN series? Looking to stay up to date with state leadership and government activities? Subscribe to PCN's newsletters and stay informed about everything Pennsylvania. Get exclusive previews, behind-the-scenes insights, and can't-miss recommendations delivered straight to your inbox. Choose the information that's important to you. It's free, it's easy, and it's just a click away. Sign up for your all-access pass to everything Pennsylvania. Visit PCNTV.com to sign up today. PCN is Pennsylvania Politics and Policy. PCN is Pennsylvania History and Culture. PCN is Pennsylvania Sports. PCN is everything Pennsylvania.
Welcome back. Our guest is Representative Danilo Burgos, Majority Chair of the Consumer Protection and Technology Committee. Welcome to our program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the basics, Representative. Just what is a skill game?
A skill game is a machine where if you're agile enough, you'll be able to stop it and win a prize, a monetary prize in this case. They're not to be confused with black boxes that pretend to be a skill game. That those machines are more like a casino type of machine, where you really have no chance other than the chance of luck to win at that game.
Now, I understand at a glance, a skill game resembles a slot machine.
It does resemble it, but it does have a mechanism that allows a person's agility to be able to stop the game and win a prize.
Yeah, let's explore that word. You said if a player is agile enough, so obviously that says that the player has some control over the outcome. So is the player able to stop a skill game once it's in motion? Can they choose when to stop it?
Yes.
And it involves some degree of skill. It's not random.
Yes, it's not. It won't stop at random. It'll stop immediately the person hits the button.
And why is it important, especially as a legislator? We know that language is very important. So why bother designating it as a skill game? Why is that important?
Well, it was designated by the courts. It was proven in a court system that the mechanism that a skill game uses is not the same as what casinos use, where casinos are more of a probability.
And where can you find skill games? I understand they're in an array of establishments.
Well, now you can find them in some of your grocery stores, in your VAs, and some of your local clubs. These machines have been vital to a lot of the veterans clubs that have been able to benefit from having the machines on location, being able to pay for staff, being able to pay for rent or utilities. You can pretty much find them almost anywhere in the state, and that's where we're having issues because we need to regulate them. And that's what the legislature is taking up now this term, where the governor has proposed a tax for the machines similar to what casino slot machines have. I believe that's too much because they're not the same machine in principle.
I have 52% is proposed by the governor.
Yeah, that's pretty high. And then governor's also proposing that the machines be under the same system as the casinos, when the courts have already ruled that they're not the same machines, so they should have a different mechanism of enforcement that protects the consumer.
And we certainly want to talk more about potential regulation of skill games and the proposed tax rate for them. But let's just explore more, just a little bit more, about the basics of skill games. When you play one, well, obviously you're playing for a prize. So what form does that prize take?
Is
it a cash prize?
It's a cash prize, yes, sir. And it's
and how does it get, who pays it out and when?
In some instances, there's a machine that called the TRD that can issue the monetary compensation, or the owner of the location or the person that's managing the location can pay out.
So that means in some cases, well, cash comes directly out of the machine, or it comes from the proprietor as well, depending on how big that prize is.
Yes, so the prizes aren't that big. It can be $2,000 or $3,000.
Now, is there a limit on how many skill games can be permitted at one establishment? Right
now, there isn't. My bill, which also Senator Gene Yaw has, I have his companion bill in the House of Representatives. We're proposing a maximum of 5 machines per location.
Why 5 machines, Representative?
Depending on the size of the location. Also, it's a negotiating tool, so that we can agree on a number at some point. You don't want to hold these clubs that already have 5. And some of them might have more, but the majority of them only have less than 5 machines in their establishment. You don't want to have a mini casino, which it's a big problem in all throughout Pennsylvania, where operators that claim to have a PA skill game machine are misrepresenting the game, and they have real slot machines. And law enforcement is not taking up issue with it yet because there's a court case differentiating both machines, a regular slot machine and a skill game machine. But hopefully this session we can get to agreeing on a legislation that will benefit the consumer.
So you said some establishments have real slot machines instead of skill games. I thought you could only play a slot machine in a casino anyway, but it sounds like not the case.
Yeah, they're called black boxes, and some establishments do have them, and the company that runs the Pace-O-Matic, it's the big operator.
They make the software for these
software
machines,
for
and they
machines.
happen to be in Pennsylvania, aren't they?
So they are out of Pennsylvania, but the company that makes the skill game machines themselves, Pace-O-Matic is just a software company.
Right.
But
Somebody else makes the hardware?
The hardwares are made right outside of in Muncie, Pennsylvania. It used to be Williamsport, but they're made in Muncie, Pennsylvania. Provide a lot of local jobs and help businesses and social clubs stay open that normally wouldn't be operating. And a lot of these clubs do good work in our communities.
Now, we're going to get more into your proposal for taxing these machines and the governor's proposal as well. Let's consider just how many skill games are out there, and that's got to be a significant number, especially if you're recommending some kind of plan for taxation. But they're off the legal radar, so how can you ascertain how many machines are out there?
Well, that's why right now there's no ton, there's guesstimation of numbers. There's just as much machines as we have gas stations, just about. And we need to regulate that because you don't know which ones are.
Is that number in the thousands, would you estimate?
Yes, it has quite a few, several thousands throughout our state.
Right.
And it's difficult because then you have people that, we don't have regulations, you have people that would try to abuse the system. And we need to provide a level playing field so that our VAs are different organizations that
convenience
are
stores, pizza stores, even.
that have used this product in order to provide another source of income for their business. But most importantly, also the Mealy Corporation also does a lot of good work with children's hospitals across Pennsylvania and local organizations by donating to needs of respect of different organizations.
Now, if the state does get involved in taxing these machines, I would expect the state would want to get involved in making sure that these machines are controlled and that the player has a fair chance of winning.
Absolutely. But most important, we need to make sure that the tax that we put on those machines is one that it's viable and that will give us the return on investment that we seek. The governor is saying that if we do at 51% tax, we'd be able to cover several parts of his budget proposal. But if we tax it too much, then we're opening the door for the black market to exist. And as government, I believe we should be looking at how we can eliminate the black market.
Now, given the governor's proposal, and the figure I have is he's proposing 52%, which is comparable to the tax rate on slot machines, just how much revenue is out there to be had. Again, we have to estimate just how many games are out there, so that seems important as far as the revenue estimate is concerned.
Hopefully, once we're able to get legislation, guidance on how we're going to regulate these machines, we'll get a better sense of how many machines we'll have throughout the state. And again, municipalities should also have a say of where they want the machines in their local areas.
And as far as the revenue, we not only are interested in how much it amounts to, but how it will be spent. Any proposals as to what will be done with that money if these machines end up being taxed?
Well, right now it could be either enhancing senior programs or enhancing public transportation throughout Pennsylvania.
Well, how about the latter part, as far as public transportation is concerned? We know there have been problems over the last couple of years.
Yes.
How do you feel about that personally?
That would be my preference, being as though that I am from Philadelphia and our Southeastern Transportation Authority is under economic distress, and also the Pittsburgh area Transportation Authority, it's also under economic distress. And we need to improve public transportation throughout our Commonwealth. We have areas that are growing thanks to immigration, like the Lehigh Valley has grown by leaps and bounds thanks to immigration. We did not lose we only lost a congressional seat in the last census thanks to immigration. A lot of our counties, a lot of our towns have seen growth in negative numbers, population growth. And immigration has helped us level or slow down that decline.
Now, some critics are saying that skill games are having an impact on the sale of lottery tickets, that skill games are undermining lottery tickets, the sale of lottery tickets. Some places have both. They have skill games and they sell lottery tickets. What can you say about that?
There's been studies that show that lottery tickets have gone up where they do have skill games.
Where they have skill games.
Yes. So I don't believe that statement is accurate.
Now, we've been talking about the governor's proposal, and again, he's proposing a 52% rate for taxing these skill games. Now, you have your own plan. You called it a companion piece of legislation to Senator Yaw's because they're so similar. And just review us how you arrived at the figure of approximately 16%, which is considerably lower than what the governor is proposing.
Well, it's 60%, but also there's other dividends that go to the local organizations that the money to stay locally. And I'm also considering a plan where we could also potentially give the casinos a lower tax rate for their slot machines, and expanding that will help us expand our tax base and diminish the black market.
And what about oversight of skill games? Is that addressed in your bill at all? How deep did you go?
Yes, we under our bill, the Department of Revenue will be in charge of the oversight, and of course, it will be in locations where people would be required to request an ID, should show an ID, and be over the age of 21.
Now, why did you choose the Revenue Department? After all, there is a gaming oversight control board.
Because the revenue since it's not the same machine as a slot machine, it's a different mechanism, and they should be, given that a lot of the businesses where these skill games do not have any interaction with the gaming control board, and that way we wouldn't be growing bureaucracy, and I believe it'd be more effective.
Does your bill oversee the verifying of the testing of these machines?
Yes. It will be all through revenue.
So then they would go out and examine these machines and make sure that they're fair?
Yes.
And as far as what about if someone's in violation of something like enforcement or accountability, are there fines or penalties? Is that addressed in your bill?
Absolutely. There'll be fines. The numbers still we haven't figured out, but it'll be comparable as to when someone commits a violation, either traffic violation or trying to sell alcohol to minors. Should be it should be very something that makes sure it's be a stern warning to whoever breaks the law.
So what about putting protections in place for the consumers, not the businesses? Now, what kind of protection do they need anyway in this new scenario?
Oh, the consumers will need protections. First of all, make sure that no one under the age of 21 is playing the machine. That the machines their mechanism does not change to a slot machine at any given point, to give assurance that the consumer is receiving a product that they are being had been advertised.
So under your bill, then young people, maybe all people, would have to be carded before they play these machines?
Absolutely.
Any restrictions on, as far as your bill is concerned, any restrictions as to who would be allowed to have these games? Because as we've already talked about, they're in a vast array of establishments already.
Right, that the local municipality should have control of where they want their machines.
How much support do you have from your colleagues on this plan you're telling us about so far?
Well, right now there's a lot of conversation about it, and we are hopeful that we'll get to a middle ground that will benefit the consumers in Pennsylvania.
Now, let's talk about the position of Pennsylvania's casinos as far as skill games are concerned. They are opposed to them, and what kind of lobbying forces have you witnessed as far as casinos being against skill games?
There's strong forces on both sides. but again, it's not the same clientele. The casino player is going for the entertainment, is going to make a whole day out of it. Dinner, maybe watch a show or a concert. A lot of these casinos are mega centers, or they have a hotel. Maybe the casino patron wants to stay overnight. It's a very different, two very different industries.
I understand casinos have to pay taxes on their slot machines, and they have to pay into a problem gambling fund as well. Do you see skill games having to pay into either of these? We've talked about taxes, of course, but what about a problem gambling fund? Should they put some money into that?
They should. Or
is that in
a
your
system,
bill?
Or a system. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know right now if it's in the bill. But again, we are negotiating, and we want to make things as fair as possible.
Thank you, Representative Burgos. So I'm going to give you a break just for a minute because we're going to look at program notes for here on PCN. On the Issues has an update on the avian flu with Dr. Lisa Murphy, toxicology professor at the University of Pennsylvania's School of Veterinary Medicine. She'll be here Wednesday at 7 p.m. Then, right after that, we'll take a look at the LGBTQ youth agenda with Jason Landau Goodman from the PA Youth Congress. He's on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Lots of PIAA basketball championship action on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Too many games to list here, but suffice it to say that it all gets started live at 12 noon on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Find out who's on the court and when by visiting PCNTV.com. The PCN Capitol Preview for next Monday, the topic will be education funding. Our guests will be Donna Cooper from Children First PA, Edward Albert from the PA Association of Rural and Small Schools, and Jeff Picola from the Commonwealth Charter Academy. They'll all be here on Monday live at 9 a.m. The public affairs coverage you watch on PCN TV is now free of charge on the internet. Go to PCNTV.com and check out our streaming service, PCN Select. PCN is Everything Pennsylvania. We're a 501c3 nonprofit television network that relies on viewers like you. To make a donation, visit PCNTV.com. All right, Representative Burgos, we're talking about the prospect of taxing so-called skill games here in Pennsylvania. And there's a councilman in Philadelphia. His name is Curtis Jones, and he's made some observations about skill games. He says in a crime-prone neighborhood, you can end up leaving the establishment and getting robbed of your prize just down the street. What kind of consideration should you give this in the event we start taxing these machines?
Well, the same we give to casinos. It happens in casinos also. It's unfortunately is part of the society that we live in, and we should. I agree with him in the sense that we need to reduce the number of skill game machines that are out that are readily accessible, and there should be in areas where making sure that we are carding people to make sure that our youth are not playing.
Yeah, Councilman Jones goes on to say that he knows about kids who are gambling their lunch money. So, again, your bill seems to address that with the carding of young people.
Yes.
How do Pennsylvanians in general now feel about this form of gambling?
People are playing it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have such a strong sentiment to legalize these machines. But at the end of the day, our goal should be to level the playing field. It happens in other states. They're doing it legally. They're like places like Florida, Virginia, the District of Columbia have the games, Texas, and they've found the middle ground, and I believe we should do so here also in Pennsylvania. There's no reason why we should allow them to continue to work without paying any taxes into funds like the gambling fund or funds to help communities across Pennsylvania, or even specifically our transportation issue that we have in Pennsylvania.
I'd like to address a form of gambling that may be confused with skill games. What I'm talking about is a thing called a VGT, which is a video gaming terminal. So that's not to be confused with skill games. Briefly, for people who haven't played these machines and don't know the difference, what is the difference?
VGT are exactly or just like the slot machines in the casino. It's a big difference. You have no chance of being able to stop the game once it's in motion. It's a random stop, even if you hit a button to ask it to stop.
And VGTs, I understand, are in very limited locations.
Yes, because they fall into the classification of a slot machine.
So then does that mean, would that be truck stops then, statewide?
There are in truck stops, yes.
And so why are VGTs limited to truck stops then? I wonder what kind of a lobbying force came to bear there and made that the law here in Pennsylvania to limit them to these truck stops.
I'm not familiar with how we came about with the law for VGTs. I was not a state rep when that laws came into order.
Tell me how important are skill games to these establishments that operate them? In other words, if they had to get rid of skill games tomorrow, how would their economic picture change?
We would see some of our veteran organizations go away. We will see some of our fraternal organizations.
They bring in that much money, huh?
Yes, according to what testament that I've heard and organizations that I've spoken with.
And
it's also, it helps them pay utilities, it helps them pay rent in some cases, and it helps them pay for staff.
Now you said that
they're not making the establishment rich.
I see. Now you said that the skill games are illegal in other parts of the United States. Did you say D.C.?
District of Columbia, yes.
And how far back does the skill game issue go? In other words, why is it taking a while to address here with Pennsylvania's legislature? Because some critics are saying that this has gone back for years, and why is that? It's
gone back for too many years, to the extent that now they're proliferated throughout our state, and we need to correct that.
Yes,
we need to make sure that these machines are paying taxes, the skill games are paying taxes, and that our consumers are protected.
Spotlight PA has written that skill games have festered, that's the word they used, in the Capitol for almost 10 years. And we have a slow, deliberative process in the legislature, but 10 years is a long time.
It's too long, and our constituents continue to lose every time they're not paying taxes. So we need to come to the middle of the road and provide some legislation and guidance how we're going to tax these machines and how we're going to enforce them in our communities.
How do you see skill games as far as being a Republican or Democrat issue? Is that perhaps part of why this is taking a while to address in our legislature?
Well, that's a great point. For the past, I believe, 10 to 14 years, it's been a Republican-led House. Democrats, we have just become in charge of the gavel through Speaker McClinton, and we identified this issue as a real problem in Pennsylvania, and we brought it out to light, and we're pushing so that we can get a vote on it and come to the middle ground and hopefully get them on the books to start paying taxes and contributing like all the other organizations that are in that field.
Spotlight PA reports that casinos have tried to restrict or even ban these machines. Do you see any likelihood of that happening, given the lobbying forces that are out there?
What's going to happen is that we're going to expand our tax base through finding a middle ground that it will be accessible for our consumers and not too burdensome on our business owners, small business owners, mom and pop convenience stores, or either a gas station, or again our fraternal organizations or veteran organizations.
Now, the controversy we're talking about today is the prospect of taxing skill games, but let's take a step backward. Do you have to have separate legislation in order to legalize these machines first?
Well, According to the courts, yes. They've declared the skill games a different type of mechanism, and that has triggered all this conversation and the potential of a new legislation so that we can legalize them.
A spokesman for Pacematic, that company we were talking about earlier that is in Pennsylvania, and they make the software for these games, they've come out and said in plain language that skill game operators won't be able to stand a tax rate that's too high. So how do you see that negotiation working out? Again, you're on the low end, relatively speaking, with a 16% proposal, and the governor is way up there with 52%.
Well, I believe we will find the middle ground. I believe that the casinos' slot machines should get a tax break, so that you can have a middle ground, so that have a number that everyone can live with.
How much emphasis is being put on this issue in your caucus right now? Might debate start on this issue soon in earnest?
We believe so. Not just this issue, but the issue of legalizing cannabis. It's a big issue. All of our neighbors have done it. They've increased their tax base. I believe that we need to concentrate on increasing our tax base and not increasing taxes all across Pennsylvania. And what that means and what that looks like, it should be compatible, and it should be in a way that we are protecting the consumers in Pennsylvania.
As far as legalizing marijuana is concerned, do you suppose that will come up first before skill games, or maybe that'll come up hand in hand because, after all, they're two potential sources of revenue?
They're two considerable sources of revenue that will help us keep our taxes at a level they are now. A lot of municipalities have big issues with raising taxes. We have pension obligations that we have to meet, and we need to expand our tax base.
When did you get involved in this debate in the first place?
2020, through COVID. That's when this debate really heated up because, well, as people weren't really out and about, fraternal groups were allowed to stay open, and this was one of the tools that they used to keep the lights on.
What do you expect as far as anticipating other challenges that may arise once these machines are legalized and a taxing taxing plan is put in place? What else do you have to deal with? What are you anticipating as far as any kind of challenges are concerned, or even trouble? How might the debate sound on the details that have to be worked out to make this come to fruition?
Well, they will be difficult, but I believe that we have the best interest of our constituents, and we will come out with a product that will benefit the consumer.
What other issues are out there, Representative, that you hope to be working on in the very near future?
I continue to work on driver's license for undocumented people. As the federal government has no idea on how to deal with our neighbors that are here undocumented, that are here contributing to the growth of Pennsylvania, that are working in our restaurants, working in our service industry. Thanks to them, when COVID hit, we were able to keep our farms working, we were able to keep our meat processing plants open, and we were able to keep food on our tables in Pennsylvania. So it's the least we can do for people that are here working, that are here undocumented because of socioeconomic issues in their country, and our federal government unwillingness to provide immigration reform.
Now, what kind of progress has been made on this issue? I know you've been working on it for a while.
We're gaining more support. We're not quite there yet, but we continue to work to make sure that people understand on the importance of making sure that all of our residents have an ID.
So how does Governor Shapiro's budget proposal look to you in its entirety, in general? And after all, that's supposed to be worked out by the end of June.
It has the best interest of Pennsylvanians. It has an interest of growing Pennsylvania, moving Pennsylvania forward. It does not have the interest of corporate America. And that's the distinction between us right now. In this moment in time, either we're going to help Main Street or we're going to help Wall Street. And I believe we're going to help Main Street.
How long have you been in the legislature so far?
I just started my 7th year.
And tell us about your experience and how you've adjusted, and what field did you come from before you were an elected representative? What were you doing?
I was working, I own my own grocery stores. I'm a small business owner myself, small business owner myself, and it's been very frustrating because as a business owner, you get things done, and as a legislator, you have to navigate all everyone's different ideas and perspective, and sometimes it favors Wall Street. And when we favor Wall Street, Pennsylvanians lose.
Let's get back to your plan, your proposal for taxing skill games, and that would be at 16%. And how much revenue do you expect from your plan as contrasted with the governor's plan? And again, this can be difficult to put a finger on because these machines are kind of off the radar.
Well, the number is hovering around $200 million. Give or take, don't hold me to that number. But again, there's a lot of factors in this. Well, one thing for sure.
Where the revenue goes is an important part too.
It's extremely important that we place this revenue and make sure it gets to where we need it the most. But one thing's for certain too, for sure, that when we help our mom and pop businesses, Pennsylvania does better. The dollars that mom and pop businesses circulate in Pennsylvania more than what corporate America does.
As far as other forms of gambling as for generating revenue, how are the casinos doing? We haven't checked in with them lately.
Revenue-wise, they're doing great. You can be at the casino from your. I thought I had my cell phone, but I left it in the green room. You can be in the casino from your cell phone. The revenues that they're raking in because of people being able to gamble through their cell phone or from their computer, or these sports parlay apps that you can bet basically on anything. The casinos are making hand over fist, which is contrary to what our local small mom and pop businesses are doing.
So when people gamble on their phones, does that still generate revenue for Pennsylvanians and senior programs? Is that not a separate thing?
I believe it does. I'm not 100% sure. I know that when you do use the casino, it does benefit our local municipalities and where the casinos are at, and also benefits our seniors.
What other committees are you on, Representative? And tell us what's on your desk as far as they're concerned. So
right now, I am the chairman of Consumer Protection, Technology, and Utilities for the House of Representatives. I don't sit on any other committees because I am a chairman. But our big issues coming up will be Chapter 14. We look to hopefully get some movement on it. And
what does Chapter 14 something to do with bankruptcy?
It's bankruptcy, and also it also has safety net for people that cannot pay their bills because maybe they lost their job or there's an illness in the that suffer an illness to the income earner of the family, and they're not able to pay the bills. This allows them to keep their bills on.
Will your committee have any public hearings to do with skill games, this topic we're covering today?
So the committee that the bills are sitting in are in the gaming committee, and that's where the hearings will be, the ones that they're called.
As far as other projects you're working on, does anything else come to mind? We talked about the licensing for undocumented workers. What have you found the most rewarding now that you've been in 6 or 7, you said 7 years?
Yes, sir.
What else have you accomplished that you're really happy about?
The one, we did not have licenses for reciprocity for professional licenses. And when I came into the legislature, I was able to help work with Republicans and Democrats to make sure that we pass legislation that will benefit people moving into Pennsylvania that would have, let's say, an engineering certificate, license degree from another state, that they wouldn't have to take the test here in Pennsylvania also, or even a barber or a nurse. We didn't have that, and now thanks to House Bill 1172, a nurse from Pennsylvania, from New Jersey, is able to work in Pennsylvania, as before you couldn't do it.
We have just a few minutes left, Representative, so please use that time and summarize what you want to accomplish as far as this prospect of taxing skill games is concerned.
I would like to provide, through legislature, an opportunity for small mom and pop business owners throughout Pennsylvania to also be able to increase, use this tool to bring more revenue to their business establishment and their local economy. When we invest in Pennsylvania locally, it helps all Pennsylvania. When we allow Wall Street to earn the larger piece of the pie, our communities lose.
And tell us why you think a 16% tax rate is appropriate.
Oh, because it allows the business owners it allows other revenues to go into the different buckets that we need. It doesn't allow everything to go just to Wall Street. Right now, whatever revenues are made in casinos, the majority of it goes to Wall Street. It doesn't stay locally, and it doesn't invest in Pennsylvania.
Our guest has been Representative Danilo Burgos, Majority Chair of the Consumer Protection and Technology Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry.
Now let's consider PCN's Carson Devitt. She did an interview with Representative Jean McNeil about carbon monoxide detectors in child care facilities.
Representative Jeannie McNeil, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
What is this bill about?
So HB 156 is to have daycares have CO detectors in every one of them in the Commonwealth.
How much of a problem is carbon monoxide poisoning?
Well, it actually happened in Allentown, actually after I initially introduced this legislation, where 27 children and one staff member were taken out in stretchers to the hospital. Several of the children ended up in the hyperbaric chambers. It has not happened that I know of recently other than that, but in my mind, once is more than enough. As a parent and a grandparent, I can't imagine that happening to someone in my family, friend, neighbors, or anyone's.
Why did you choose to sponsor this bill?
Well, actually, my bill came out before this happened. I had a staff member who had to leave suddenly because her grandchildren were at a daycare and were lethargic, along with some other children. And the initial thought was that it was a heating issue backing up into the daycare. They found it wasn't that. They still never determined what it was, or if they did, I never found out. And that's what got me to initiate this. And then after I put the legislation out, sadly, of course, it never passed. And then this event happened. And I was actually watching the local news channel, and I was horrified to see it, thinking, if we had, sorry, I get emotional, if we had passed this would not have happened to these children. And thinking of the families and thinking all they went through. So again, we went another session and it did not pass. Passed it at the House, but sadly the Senate never passed it. So we just passed it out of committee, and I'm hoping that it's going to be run on the House floor in April. That's what I've been told. It's slated for that so far.
Are there differences in how carbon monoxide poisoning is detected in children versus adults?
I don't believe so. That would be an expert that would be able to know that, but I believe it probably would hit them sooner because of their size, hitting children first, but that's a guess.
Are there any anticipated challenges in implementing this legislation effectively?
Well, I'm hoping once the House floor passes it, which I'm pretty sure it will, that the Senate will pick it up this time. I do have the emergency room physicians advocating for this to make this happen this time around, and I'm hoping it finally does happen. CO detectors, 2 of them with a 10-year battery are like $100, and for 2. At least that was what it was when I bought new ones like 2 or 3 years ago. So it's not an unfunded mandate on daycares. It's pretty reasonable. And if we can save one life or anyone being sick or injured, it's well worth it.
Who will be responsible for enforcing the requirements of this bill?
Who will be responsible? Honestly, I have to say I'm not sure who will be responsible for it. I believe someone can report it. I believe that it will be part of inspections when daycares get their annual or biannual inspections. And then that's when it would be noted. And then I know some fire departments do give them to local homes and daycares. I'm not sure if everyone does. So for the ones that don't have that access, then hopefully they would get them.
Do you know what is the effectiveness of the carbon monoxide detectors you plan to implement in these daycare facilities?
It can save lives and it can save health issues.
And lastly, I know you briefly mentioned this. Where is this bill in the legislative process, and how soon would it be implemented if it gets passed?
We passed it last week in my Children and Youth Committee, and now it's ready to go to the House floor for a vote. So I'm hoping either the first week of April or the third week of April, we can pass that.
And for my last question for you, as Majority Chair of the Children and Youth Committee, what is your responsibilities and what do you oversee?
I oversee juvenile justice, anything to do with children, pre-K, not education, but I work very closely with the Chair of Education and the Chair of Human Services because a lot of our issues are intermingled and we work together on things like that.
We've been speaking with Representative Jeannie McNeil. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks to Carson for that interview. Before we go, the PCN Capitol Preview for next Monday. The topic will be education funding. Our guest will be Donna Cooper from Children First PA, Edward Albert from the PA Association of Rural and Small Schools, and Jeff Picola from the Commonwealth Charter Academy. They'll be here on Monday live at 9 a.m. That's it for the PCN Capitol Preview. I'm Larry Casper. Thanks for watching.